Julian, former recruiting coordinator at Memphis Tigers, the University of Memphis Tigers. I say that because we're certainly in a weird period when it comes to recruiting with baseball. We've seen a lot of changes over these last couple years. Now, obviously, we've kind of gone through this transition. When guys can commit, when coaches can be in contact with them. As a guy that's now watching it from the outside, do you miss it, or are you like, I'm glad I'm not dealing with some of those headaches?
It's a little bit of both, right? We all enjoy the rat race and feeling the importance of getting up every day and trying to hunt down the best players in the country. But right now I feel like a lot of people are in a wait-and-see mode still, right? Like when this shakes out, like what does it look like? How many people are coming in? If the rule passes where you actually don't lose eligibility with those 2 years ago in JUCO, right? So it's now like, what do we do? How do we go about it? Let's wait and see. But I think the biggest thing out of this and what everybody needs to hear out of this segment is that JUCO baseball is a really good option right now. It is really good because at the end of the day, if there's a couple outliers out there, there are guys that are big and physical enough coming out of high school that can just go compete with 22 and 23-year-old guys, right? But for the most part, that's not everybody, and that's 100% okay. JUCO is going to be able to give you 2 more years to be able to develop, get in the weight room, get physical, get a little bit mentally tough, develop that edge that a lot of people miss right now with being able to play at awesome facilities like this every single day and kind of get to the grassroots of things. And so I think the biggest thing is being able to understand that JUCO is a big option. It wasn't always the prettiest option back in the day, but right now it's a great option. These facilities now are
Yeah, runner taking off for second. He will easily grab that bag on the swipe.
Some of the facilities top end in the country look just like this one, right? All turf field, indoor facility, round the clock. Obviously, the JUCO rules are a little bit lax, so those guys get to get after it all day, every single day, which is huge. You need more time, but the biggest thing is if you love baseball, you will go play baseball anywhere. Some people are in love with what baseball looks like, what it can give me. Like, oh man, I've got said Power 5 school, next to my name and my face on my profile. Instead of saying, hey man, I love baseball. I want to get in it. I want to continue to play as long as I possibly can. And if right now, taking a real look in the mirror, if right now I'm a junior college baseball player, then that's exactly what I want to be, and that's where I'm going to go, and that's what I'm going to do because I love the game and I'm playing it just for that, not anything else, not the statistics or what it looks like to everybody else, but just deep inside, like I love ball, so I'm going to go play wherever that is.
Yeah, it's interesting you take us there because Georgia Highlands, right up the street from here, they actually practiced on these fields, Dash O'Neill and his teams for years. They have now since got their own turf field as that one's going to be down for a base hit. Looks like USA Scout is going to have its first run of the game.
Hit the cut.
They're taking off for second, and
That's
they
ball.
got him.
That's ball.
Yeah, some
there
smart
it is.
Play there at third. Getting that runner down at second. But you kind of took us there. I mentioned that Dash O'Neill and Georgia Highlands used this facility for a long time. They now have their own turf field. I've had conversations with him about this, and you mentioned the court cases. Georgia's Dylan Goldstein got his attempt to have a place in, so his time at Chipola wasn't going to count against him, so he could have more time for the Bulldogs. That didn't go through. So it seems as though we've seen some cases where it does work out in the player's favor. We're obviously seeing in that case one where it works out the NCAA's favor. It feels like at some point someone's just going to have to set some true guidelines on how this whole JUCO thing's going to. It could completely change what JUCO is if a guy knows he goes there and it's not going to count against his NCAA eligibility. But I think until we get to that point, we're going to be watching these cases each and every time they pop up.
I think so, but it also goes back to like, hey, look, what do we want to do, number one? And, with Major League Baseball kind of cutting back on some of the minor league levels, this is a really good spot for them to be able to say, hey, look, we're going to give guys, we're not going to penalize guys' eligibility for being able to go to this level of ball, and I think it's great. I think let those guys go to JUCO, let them go play, right? Because a lot of these guys are getting into the bigger programs and they're sitting, and then they're going, oh, I don't like to sit because the travel ball system has never allowed me to sit, right? Like I get to pick and choose what high school I go to, and I think they're getting ready to pass a rule. I know for sure in Tennessee that you get one transfer without a penalty.
Yeah,
so, you know what I mean? Like the whole system doesn't set you up for what everybody's wants are, and then when they get to that spot and it's not what they wanted to be, then they get out and then they go back and forward and kind of pinball. So I think it's a good thing being able to allow those guys to go to JUCO without penalty. I think it's great.
When you're talking to a parent that comes through the Memphis Tigers organization, and everybody, of course, has got that pipe dream, and you guys had Ari Bethea, a guy that's on his way down to Tennessee, and you're going to have a player like that, that is an undeniable power forward kind of player. But you're going to have a lot more guys that come through an organization that want to keep playing and finding a way to play at the next level. What's that communication like to parents when you say, you know what, there's not a linear path for a player? You could wind up at a JUCO. You could go to an NAIA route, and maybe you do wind up playing for a Power 4 program. But being able to play in some shape or form, if that's your mission, this is how it happens.
I think the biggest thing is that most people don't realize, the Ari Betheas and the Colin Blands of the world weren't those dudes,
Colin Bland, another one,
when they were in 6th and 7th grade, right? So you get those guys into the system, you let those guys work, right? Understand that development is the most important thing right now. That is the most important thing. Some guys bloom a little bit earlier because they're more physical. Right, we've got Cole Henderlight here with us this weekend playing with our 13-year-old team, and he is 6'1", 210 pounds. Wow. Like he is
a man.
In the average Division I baseball player, I think is 6 foot, 190 pounds. So that guy physically right now can go play.
Yeah.
Not everybody's like that, right? Like I'm a shorter stature guy. I played 6 years of professional baseball, and it was because of I need to be able to get into a spot that understands what's the most important thing. Not chasing trophies, which if you put together a club, that's within your system, which is great. But besides that, being able to get to a spot where player development is the most important thing. I think a lot of people get into this thing because it gets a little bit flashy and we want to go be on national team this, national team that. But how do you get to that spot, right? You get to that spot by player development, being able to have a regional-based program that sets baseball standards and policies on how it looks in the next level. Like all the things that I did in Division I baseball, they're all on paper for all of my coaches. Obviously in youth baseball there's a lot of coaches that are fathers. Some guys played at a high level, some guys did not. And how do we bring everybody up, whether it's a 7U coach that's a coach pitch guy or our 12U coach? We get them in place, practice plans, development plans, winter workouts, workout plans, and just a whole caboot, man. We just teach our coaches how to coach, and you can't go wrong no matter if you have a AA player and he's getting the same information as a 16-year-old that's getting ready to go to one of those Power 5 schools. You
mentioned your own baseball background, 33rd round draft pick by the Mariners in 2005, one professional home run with the Lexington Legends in 2008. What do you remember about that? You had only been called up for a few days at that point, right?
That's exactly right. What I remember about that, I was in short season I was with Troy, and I got the call. We were in New York when I got the call, so I had to call my dad. I called my dad. I was like, Dad, hey, look, I'm getting moved up. We're getting ready to go to Lexington, this, that, and the other for the rest of the year. I'm going to need you to come, pack up like everything that I have in the apartment that we have, which was about as big as where we're at right now. And my dad drove all the way up there. He got back to me. We had a homestand, and he had just walked into the ballpark, and the guy threw me a 00 heater up. I swung through it. And I was like, he's probably going to try to climb the ladder again. And I cheated, and I got to it, and I hit it there's a water tower out there, and I hit it off of, and I looked up, and my dad was there, and I pointed at him, and it was something really,
awesome.
Really special. So that's my favorite moment of that one home run that I got, that my dad was there, able to be there and share after, looking a little green in the face after having to drive 13 hours to be able to get back to Lexington, Kentucky, which is a great town, by the way.
It's interesting that you have such recall of that moment, because I think when you have a long baseball career and you do so much, it's interesting how those little things like that, even guys that are playing this weekend will have these moments where you'll ask them about it, and they can get that kind of recall. They know the pitch. They know what they threw them before. They can. I always find it fascinating that those kind of core moments in a player's career, those things that they can just recall everything about them.
I think the biggest part of that is the family aspect of it, right? My dad and him being there and everything that he had to do to be able to get to that moment. And it's kind of what I told all 6 of our teams that are here. I was like, hey, look, of course we want to go, compete at a regional level in this tournament, but it's also about the fellowship, right? We want to be able to get around. We call it Tiger Takeovers, be able to have all of our players, even though you might have 2 games scheduled for the day, but don't just go to your 2 games. Go check out another game. Let's build some energy and make this ballpark feel like a home field advantage. And the energy around the ballpark today has been really, really good so far. So kudos to our parents and our families for being able to take the time to be able to go watch other Tiger teams. So we're building that core family foundation, and which makes this organization a little bit different than most.
We've got a 1-0 lead for USA Scout here in the Prep Baseball Invitational. Jack Rossi now on the mound for USA Scout. He's facing off against Silas Keene for Warriors Baseball Academy. Easton Lee just resulted in the first out for Warriors Baseball. A catcher, and I want to take you in a conversation that sometimes can be touchy, but I think it's an important one where we kind of stand out in a lot of baseball development, especially here in an area like Metro Atlanta. There has not been an everyday black catcher in baseball since Charles Johnson in 2004. What do you feel like that there's something behind that? Is it circumstantial? Where do you kind of stand on the development of the black catcher?
Well, first off, Charles Johnson was somebody that in my scouting report they were like, "Hey, could be, this is the top end ceiling for me as a player." But honestly, I think that position, that skill, especially in youth baseball, if you get an athlete in general. Right, an athlete in general, they move them to middle of the field, this, that, and the other. But what they don't realize is catcher is an unbelievable position that has multiple skills in it. Receiving, the throwing aspect, the footwork aspect, the leadership on this side of the field. And obviously I wish there would be more African-American players in general, but I think the demographic has a lot to do with, hey man, look, like athletic, let's go put you in the outfield. You run, you're fast, this, that, and the other, or you're big, you're a corner guy. But honestly, it was for me when I got my start. I always wanted to catch. My dad always sent me to like all the pitching and middle infield stuff. And when I got into 8th grade, I went to Cordova Middle School, and Margaret Carroll is a lady, very good like softball player in her day, right? And she was like, "Hey, do you want to catch?" I was like, "Absolutely." And I got my start there, and I'm a little ADHD, so being able to have a ball thrown to me every single time kind of fed that need for me, and I kind of took off with it. I fell in love with the defensive aspect of it. I love the leadership role of it, and it was just fun. But just like I said, there's few and far between. Obviously, there's a lot of Latin American catchers, but just like I said, there's just a little bit of an outage with the African American catcher, and I'd love to be able to see African Americans in general play this game because there's a lot to offer, and I think the athleticism would shine through. And we're a 501c3, and we're looking to be able to do more of those things in the inner city, just to be able to just allow people to see it. You know what I mean? I think in certain parts of everybody's city, there's it's football. It's football and it's basketball, right? And I think just being able to have an MVP, minority baseball prospects do a great job of being able to shine the light on those guys. Alex Weiss has done a
fantastic job with that program.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I've scouted some of their events and stuff when I was on the college side of things, but I think that's great.
Yeah, I always find it interesting when MLB will go into a community and they'll go in there to look to refurbish fields. Mm-hmm. But I always feel like the thing that can truly bridge that gap is funding players' ability to play other players at a high level. Mm-hmm. If you create scholarships, within travel programs, or you create something like the RBI program that they have, where you're creating an environment. When you're creating an environment where they can be uplifted by other players of high level, I think that does a lot more than maybe refurbishing a field in maybe an area that needs it.
I think so. In RBI, just like I said, I was a product of RBI, and I had an opportunity to be able to meet the scout that drafted me, Alvin Rittman, and also Dave Clark. Dave Clark, long-time Pirate, Cub for a while. I mean, he was all over the place. Astro. He's from Tupelo, but he lived in Collierville. And, he was a huge mentor of mine. He still comes and helps with camps. He's currently the first base coach for the Astros right now. He's still in. So, being able to have guys that looked like me in such a predominant role in baseball, right? You got a guy that's a scout. This is a strong position, right? That has say. And then you've got, a 10-year veteran, right? That has been everywhere, hit everywhere, and then coached for a really long time. That meant a lot to me. And as we continue, we got a guy taking off. And as we continue to grow the Memphis Tigers.
This is the play that always drives me crazy. Having coached myself, when you've got a runner in scoring position to throw the ball around like that, I just can never understand the mindset to be able to do that. I think everyone always assumes you're going to be able to pull it off, but then you just result in that, and we have got a tie game.
Well, the thing is you just never know how much they actually work on first and third defense. Yeah. Just like I said, with us, like it's on paper how I would like for it to go down. And I know we work on it. We just finished up our spring training event where we have all of our youth teams meet up and we scrim it. We have a workout in the morning, and then we play 3 games before the season even starts. Let's make sure we're on the same page with our organizational concepts on how we want certain situations handled. And then we go about it through there. But you just don't know if, number one, if these guys play together, right, regularly. Do they practice together regularly? Or is one from,
Yeah, so this is their team Nike. So they've got players from all over the country. I believe there's Georgia, Iowa, Michigan, Missouri, Tennessee, Texas, and Virginia are all represented in this team.
And if it's a close game with a regional-based team, situations like that cause panic for those guys that don't know each other and how they want things to be done. And then, really talented baseball players lose to good baseball teams.
Mm-hmm. Landon DeLay now at the plate for Warriors Baseball Academy. We talked about Super 60, you and I, a little bit earlier. There were 4 quarterbacks at Super 60 who were all catchers. And you talk about athleticism, and you typically take a guy who's athletic and you put him at shortstop, you put him in the outfield. It seems like you're finding a lot more guys who are of that athletic ilk that do want to catch because they kind of have the same mindset, the same responsibilities on the football field that they have behind the plate.
That's exactly right. I was about to say the common factor in both of those positions in the 2 sports is the leadership role. The leadership role, they always have the ball in their hands. Who gets the ball the most? Pitcher obviously throws the ball the most, catcher receives the ball, and then first base is actually next when it comes to receiving defensive throws. So that does not surprise me at all, right? Bigger, stockier body guys, probably a little bit of shake, but not too much, right? That can take control of a game. And that's the biggest thing about the catcher position for me. As you can tell through the broadcast here, the catcher is actually the only one facing the field the right way. Everybody else is facing this way. So
That's true.
He's got an opportunity to be able to see everything and do everything and kind of direct. And as a head coach, you want to be able to lean on that guy to be able to kind of take charge in situations and remind pitchers and defenses if we need to shade. Obviously going through your first and third plays loud and proud, calling out bunt defenses and all of that stuff. So it's fun. It's an active position, just like quarterback. You always have the ball in your hand, and you have a little bit of say. And some organizations do it different to where they actually have their catcher call pitches, which some do and some don't. So that's another aspect of being the signal caller, right?
Cal Morrison behind the plate for USA Scout right now. PitchCom has become a bigger factor, I think, that we've seen over the past year here, even at the youth level. How do you guys at Memphis Tigers kind of approach that? Are you guys using it? And if you do, at what age level does that kind of fit in the equation?
Some do and some don't. I think, the whole Astros thing back in the days kind of had everybody a little bit spooked. And then sometimes because there's in certain organizations, I'm talking, high school and college, there'll be a guy over there that's specifically trying to pick up signs from the pitching coach, right? And if you play each other enough, they'll be able to pick it up. Some have that tool to where they can pick it up in different travel ball games, and you've got to be kind of sneaky on how you want to do it. Me personally, I do not use it. I've got a system that I use that's been good to me for a while, but some, want to be able to get in there and do it. And some say that it speeds the game up. I know at Memphis we had the PitchCom right with the clicker. Everybody's got a wristband. We look down and then we roll from there. It keeps it safe, keeps it clean, keeps it quick. But, I'm a little bit of a traditionalist for right now. I don't think that, 9-year-olds need PitchComs or anything like that. But, some of our older teams do use it. Just to be able to kind of speed things up if, we don't get a hold of our high school players until post-May, right? So it kind of makes it a little bit more difficult for the high school guy, and you're mixing pitches up, this, that, and the other. So it makes it a little bit easier when you don't spend enough time with guys, or when you're not able to spend enough time with guys to be able to get those calls right.
Landon DeLay went down on strikes. Brian Simpson now at the plate for Warriors Baseball Academy with 2 down here in the inning. There's a runner at third. Tie ball game now, 1-1 here in the bottom of the first. It's going to get away the arm side there. Yeah, it's interesting. We had the National Academies Association tournament here a couple years ago, and that was the first time that I saw it at the high school level. And then this past summer, we had a lot of the travel teams that were using it. I think at first we thought guys had Apple Watches out there, and then we had some interesting delays with it not working in real time, and you that's when we picked up. Man, these guys are all using PitchCom, but it just seems like it's more and more infiltrating the travel scene.
It is, just like I said, it's quick, it's convenient for those that don't spend a lot of time, especially with the older guys. It's just quick and easy.
2 strikes here to Simpson. Bounces in front of the catcher. Again, we got a 1-1 game here. Julian Henson from Memphis Tigers joining us here in studio. So you were part of the Future Games coaching squad last year for Tennessee. Colin Bland was the guy that you and I mentioned a little bit earlier, and somebody who I think really took advantage of that stage. What's your kind of thought on the future games in general, and kind of how a player goes in? Because it can be overwhelming for some of these guys to go in there and see all the scouts that are on hand. You've kind of seen it from both sides as the scout. You're now part of the coaching staff for Tennessee. How do you tell a player to prepare for an environment like that?
First off, I think Hunter Martin's done an unbelievable job in the 2 years that he's been in. Just like I said, when I got out of coaching college, and he just got the job, and the thing is really just taken off. But I'm going to tell you this, that 3-day span is the best event in the country. I mean, you've got over 350 colleges, and we're all the way here in Atlanta. And as I'm walking through as a coach for Team Tennessee, I'm like dodging like Hawaii, I'm dodging like Oregon. I'm like, man, that's a long way. And there's a million people here. And on the coaching side, when I was recruiting, I was like, mercy, man, I've really got to be on my P's and Q's right now, because there's a lot of guys in the hunt, right? Which makes it really competitive for each coach. That means they're going to be P's and Q's. That means there's going to be more deals made for those players, knowing that everybody was there to be able to see them. And everybody looks over, and you're like, daggum, we've got our whole entire conference is sitting down at the same game, and we're like, all right, we got to lock in and get it done. So unbelievable event. It's my favorite event of the year, and very thankful for Hunter Martin being able to have me on. We also get to coach with R.A. Dickey, which is unbelievable. He throws me a knuckleball like every year, and I attempt to catch it. Sometimes successful, sometimes not. But it's a huge wealth of baseball from the pro side, and what exactly our colleges are looking for when they're at these events. So great event. Kudos to PBR for being able to put on the best event in the country. Yeah,
his son came 2 years ago as a younger player playing up in the future games, and just was absolutely fantastic. Had you had experience working with a knuckleballer at any point during your professional career?
Me, no. I never had a knuckleballer. A couple split finger guys, but never a knuckleballer. So, I mean, it was crazy. It was like one day at BP, he was like, "I'll throw it," and I'm like, this is unbelievable. Number one, that a bona fide big leaguer and a Cy Young winner is going to throw batting practice to the youth, and I'm sitting here nudging our guys. I'm like, dude, Cy Young winner's throwing you BP, and they're like, what? And I'm like, no, dude, you need to understand what's going on. Like, lock in here. So, great event. He's an awesome guy. And, I wish his son the best of luck in his recruiting process.
Yeah, stays very low-key, by the way, when he's around here. I mean, he's a very unassuming guy and very quiet. I dealt with him a little while during his last season when he was here in Atlanta, here with the Braves. Went out and got him and Bartolo Colon that same offseason. So he was a treat to be around, and a guy who, as you mentioned, has an illustrious career with Toronto and with the Mets as well, and wrapping it up here in Atlanta. We're on to the second inning. This one is all tied up at 1-1. Julian Henson from the Memphis Tigers joining us in the studio. Jackson Pudvey will lead things off for USA Scout. He's going to be followed by Joey Odak and Kellum Typer. So USA Scout, they play out of LakePoint. They practice here multiple times a week. They have multiple teams at nearly every event that we have here on campus. And if you take this Warriors Baseball Academy team to kind of put into perspective the amount of time that USA Scout spends on these fields, they have a combined 23 prep baseball event appearances on their entire roster. The guy that you're going to see hit next in this inning, Joey Odak, has 27 on his own.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we're about to put them on payroll. So
that's
go ahead.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Number 21 is a big man. That was a nice hack on his first swing there.
Yeah, Yeah, Jackson Pudvey, we've got him listed at 6'1", 175 pounds from Davison, Michigan, 2029. Get a kid with this size at this age, you see an exit velo of 86.2 at this age. That's probably going to be maybe flirting with triple digits by the time he gets done with his high school career.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. I think one of the biggest things with youth hitters right now with the current landscape is I think you got to teach these guys how to be aggressive, right? Before you start messing around and tinkering with this, that, and the other. If you don't have that aggressive mindset, especially when you start getting into the older age groups, you're not going to have the opportunity to look at 2 fastballs or your at-bat's over, right? You're going to get 5 sliders until it's over. So teaching those guys how to hunt, be aggressive, and then I would rather have a guy that I've got to pull back a little bit and say, hey, man, we need to talk about approach versus a guy that I have to say, hey, you know what, we need to swing the bat a little bit more. You know what I mean? So him being a big guy and aggressive like that, now it's about, becoming skilled. Oh, got him.
Yeah, took that one in the helmet.
Tough, too.
Yeah, Austin Riley told me that he hunts windows. He's not necessarily looking at spin. He's not looking for selective pitches. He's hunting windows, and that's going to determine what he's doing at the plate. Hacks by Henson is your own instruction facility. You do swing analysis online. You're working with players in person. What's the hitting philosophy for you? Are you someone that kind of has that same approach, or how do you approach things with a player?
Well, I think it's not just one way, right? There's a lot of swing coaches out there, and there's very few hitting coaches that can see a guy and say, hey, man, I'm not just going to cookie cut you into this box. I'm going to evaluate you, figure out how you think, right? And then we can start chopping this thing up the way we need, right? Like some guys are a little bit more passive when you tell them to step on the gas and remind them it's 100% okay for them to swing and miss. And other guys, we've got to be able to kind of slow them down a little bit, like I said before. But I don't think there's just one way to be able to do it, which makes, how we do things a little bit different, because we want to be able to sit down, understand how the hitter thinks, right? Then we can better figure out a way to communicate what we need to the hitter. And, just like I say all the time, like this is a people first business, not a baseball first business. So it's a people first business with baseball in it. So as soon as I figure out my athlete, then we can kind of chop things down on a swing playing idea or if it's a timing issue. Big thing for me, I'm always talking about timing. I would rather have a dude with a 2-cent swing and really good timing than a guy with a really good swing and no understanding of timing at all, because the guy with the bad swing is going to understand how to deliver his barrel back because he's got that timing aspect versus, the guy that's been in lessons his whole entire life, right, and just has no feel for timing at all. We were in a game earlier today. There was with our 13-year-old group. There was a guy that was, he was a pitcher. He was a little bit softer. He wasn't a guy that was dominating with velocity or anything. And he had our guys kind of spinning around. Really good swings, right? But our timing was off, and there were some swing breakdowns. And most of the time, if there is a swing breakdown, it's due to timing. So just because you got a guy that's throwing 90 miles an hour, and when he separates, you load. If you got a guy that's throwing 75 miles an hour, if he separates and you load again, you are now way early. Right, so you've got to be able to kind of pick up those things and talk through those kind of timing mechanisms with those guys to be able to help them better understand that hitting is timing and pitching is disrupting timing.
So Joey Odak, the first 2 pitches of this AB, took it from the right batter's box. Then he switched over mid AB to the left batter's box.
I don't think is that legal.
I didn't think, because I thought as an ambidextrous pitchers have to establish for each at bat what arm they'll be throwing with.
Yep.
And we just watched him switch from the right side to the left side.
I don't necessarily understand in the left on left matchup. So now we're opening up the breaking ball here. And fun fact, so Austin Riley is from DeSoto County.
Yes.
And obviously I'm from Cordova. I actually coached Austin from 14 through 17 with the Doolin Dodgers. That's my man right there. So
yeah, I've known Austin since he was drafted. It was really cool watching him get married, then watching him have his first child, and we had some dad conversations about some things they don't necessarily tell you in the hospital to get ready for when you're in the hospital with that,
just gotta
that
figure it
firstborn.
out.
But he's a joy to be around, and it really has established himself for this current generation of kids in Metro Atlanta. It's that's their Chipper Jones.
Absolutely, and just like I said, not a better guy to be able to do it. Hard worker, former catcher.
Yeah.
Right? Former punter.
Yep.
Used to punt back in boom balls, too. I think his dad actually punted in the NFL for a little bit.
So he was running hitting clinics his first couple years during the offseason because he told me his wife wouldn't let him spend his baseball money on hunting and fishing. So he had to have
That's his love, by the way.
So he had to have these events during the offseason so he could get that extra money to go blow on hunting and fishing.
I don't know if it's necessarily blowing if you if you love it as much as he does. That dude can stay in the sticks all year long if you'd let him.
Odak gets that one into center field. Going to be hauled in for the first out. Runner will stay at second. Again, a 1-1 ball game here. We saw a back pick throw from the catcher to first base. As a catcher, I know that's a throw everyone loves to make to try to get the runner. When you're coaching, do you see it differently as a coach than you did as a player? Because when you're a player, I can get that guy. But as a coach, how do you view it?
As a player, you want to rip it. I was a little bit of a gunslinger. That's kind of why I got drafted. But as a player, you always want to let it rip. But there's a way to set it up, right? And that's those subtle nuances that you have to talk through with your catchers. Every now and again when you catch the ball, after you receive the ball from the pitcher, you just throw it back without even looking, right? Kind of throw it back, and then you also realize that a ball's got to be in a certain zone for you to be able to close down, to be able to let that back pick go. If you're catching a ball to your left and trying to bring it all the way back, it's not going to work out. So understanding you got to lull a guy to sleep, and then as soon as you get a fastball low and away or a breaking ball low and away, you let that thing rip from your knees and you get one.
Were you more reluctant to throw it to third than first? Because obviously, if you throw it to third and the guy's not watching for it, runs crossing the plate.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you're throwing to first, you're either going to put it, and if you make a bad throw, you're going to put a guy in scoring position. But if you throw a ball to third base, normally he's going to come in to throw unless you've got a left fielder that's locked in, which you always praise those guys when you don't. But for me, I'm going to rip it. You know what I mean? I'm going to bet on myself and let it ride every single time. Don't miss high. That's my thing. Miss low, don't miss high. They can always pick it. Yeah,
it just seems like we're seeing it a lot more at the youth level the last couple of years than I remember it being the years before that. It just seems like it's becoming, I think a lot of it too, these guys are watching the major league games, they're watching a lot more college games, they're watching higher level travel baseball, and guys are doing it. So I think you're just seeing it more frequently at the youth level.
In my opinion, I think base running at the youth level, because it's not worked on, is not very good. So obviously that's going to open up a lot of windows for guys to be able to back pick people regularly. So, those catchers that are back there, man, air it out when you get the opportunity, but set it up first.
Again, you have 6 teams on campus this weekend for the Prep Baseball Invitational. How deep into this schedule are we going to see Memphis Tigers baseball here at LakePoint Sports?
We will, obviously this event's kind of kicking everything off. This is actually our first event of the year. After our post-spring training, we want to be able to get down here, but we will have teams popping through here all the way through the back end, MPI, national championships with the older guys. So, I love the events here. Obviously, the ballpark state of the art, but the competitions here as well.
Tell us about some of the guys at those higher levels that we're going to have to circle when we start getting into that. And when the high school guys are done, those names that we're going to have to watch out for this summer. Well,
this summer we've got our 16U team's very, very talented. So you're going to look out for guys like Robert Arms, which is probably going to be here at the PBR Futures game. Mason Woods is the top number 1 left-handed pitcher in the state of Tennessee. We've also got Landon Sweeney, which is a high-ranked PBR player in Mississippi out of Tupelo. So we have got Braden Holland, who actually just posted at a ID camp 85 miles an hour from behind the plate.
Wow.
And around 96 to 98 exit velo. He's a guy that's hungry. We've got some good catchers in our area. And, this guy's kind of been slated as number 2, number 3 behind Will Brick, which everybody knows who Will Brick is, right? And, this guy's got a chip on his shoulder. And I love Will, and he does a fantastic job, and I love both the boys. But Braden Holland's going to be a guy that's going to stand up and shock a lot of people over the next couple years. It's crazy that these guys are just going into their sophomore year, and they're just so physical. We talked about that, man. These guys are so physical. But, the Tigers are going to have a bunch of guys coming up here pretty soon that everybody's going to have to watch. They're going to be must-watch players, so I'm excited.
Yeah, excited to see them. That one gets past into the left field. It's going to result in 1 run for USA Scout. Oh, got him at third in time.
Yep, in time. I didn't know that tag looked a little funky there, and the field umpire didn't know if he was ready to pull the trigger or maybe he was just nonchalant with it.
A 2-1 lead now for USA Scout as we sit here in the second inning. Now moving on to Cal Morrison, the catcher. I was going to ask you during Sawyer Ferguson, who's now standing at second base off that RBI double, saw the towel flapping in the back of the pocket for him. It seems like we're seeing a lot, guys. There seems a lot more flair, a lot more added to the uniform mix here. I mean, as somebody who played for a long time, I would see a catcher having a need for that thing in the back pocket. What's your take on that?
Well, in general, the flair is another way for these guys to be able to express themselves. I don't have a problem with it at all, as long as those guys are getting after it. Period. Point and blank. Right? If you can wear anything that you want to wear. If you want to mix in the highlighter colors, I do not care. But you have to get after it every single day. We can't have all that stuff on and not give great effort. I'm not telling you have to be the best baseball player in the world, but you have to give great effort and hustle and play the game the right way for me to be able to have that stuff. I know catchers normally like to have a little bit of something in their back pocket because obviously, you've got the gear on, you've got sweat running down your forearms and all that other kind of stuff. It could be an accessory for somebody else. But catchers, I definitely understand why they could be able to have something in their back pocket. I think the forearm bands have kind of like gone away. You remember those back?
Oh, yeah.
Chipper Jones, man, that was a big chipper
That's
guy.
right.
I mean, that guy had forearm bands. I was like, I gotta have them. But
well, the ones I remember the most were Barry Bonds would wear them, and Eric Davis and Darryl Strawberry, and they had like their faces were on them. They had like the little stencil cartoon of themselves. On there. Dusty Baker actually was still wearing them up until a couple years ago,
Absolutely.
So they were still making them for him.
Armbands and the toothpick.
So Sawyer Ferguson advances off the pass ball. Again, you got Cal Morrison at the plate for USA Scout. His squad up 2-1 here in the second inning. I think you and I talked about this before. I mean, you mentioned the effort, being okay with the effort, with the flare as long as the effort meets that. Guys with the sliding mitts, the same thing. Like, if you don't take forever at first base with them. If you can make them work, well, you can use them. But if it's that when it becomes a process and guys aren't paying attention to the pitch, that's when that item in particular becomes an issue.
It is, but what most people are missing from big league games, right? If a guy walks or whatever, or gets a hit, like these guys are taking the stuff off.
Yeah.
In the batter's box. And then as they're going down the line, they are now putting it on, so it is on by the time they get there, right? If you get a base hit, obviously you got to unload some stuff, and you've got to be able to slide that thing on quick, fast, and in a hurry. But yeah, it can't take away, and it's a little bit more feel from the guy in the box too. Don't just rush into the box,
That's right.
man. I just got a base hit. Like, come on, let me enjoy it a second, get all this stuff off, and pick up the signs. This, that, and the other. So guys having a solid routine at the plate, pre-pitch routine to be able to breathe deep, remind yourself, positive aphorism, pick up your coach could give those guys a little bit more time too.
Memphis Tigers Julian Henson joining me in studio, and you had mentioned positive affirmations before we went to break between the first and top and bottom of the second inning here. Such a big piece of the puzzle for young players because it's so easy to get caught up in results and where you looked during that day. Did you get a hit? Did you not get a hit? Did you strike out? What were the end results? How do you guys go into a situation with a player and kind of develop those positive affirmations, that positive mindset when it comes to playing a really, really tough game?
Well, I think that's the biggest thing. They have to understand like the toughness of this game and how hard it is, and it's an old cliche, right? Like you can go 3 for 10 and you're in the Hall of Fame, but if you go, you get 3 out of 10 on your test, you fail, right? So it's being able to allow those players to realize that the cushion is inside of that 70%, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's 100% okay. Like I have to talk to our guys all the time about, this is going to sound crazy, and you probably never had a hitting coach tell you this. You don't actually have to hit the ball with less than 2 strikes. Right, your job is to give great effort with a good plan through the middle of the field. So if you swing and miss once, you're not out. But if you decelerate, to be able to just make contact because you're afraid of striking out, now the worst things possibly happened that you're out right now. You gave away an at bat, and obviously at the higher levels of baseball, a guy's got to be able to put you in the lineup because you're going to give him quality at bats after quality at bat after quality at bat. So with us, positive affirmations, being able to be in the right mindset is the biggest thing possible because it's just you versus the pitcher in the box, and if you don't believe, you don't have a chance. So whether it's something simple like I'm the greatest hitter in the world, might not be true, but if I believe that, I'm going to go in there with confidence to be able to do exactly what I need to do, which is have a plan, pay attention to my situations, and get the job done.
So kind of the perception of the sixth tool as a baseball player has become that mental side of things. I know Prep Baseball is doing a lot with Brandon Geyer and his Major League Mindset program. Had him in here during the feature games. He was actually at All-American game down in Miami with us too. He was one of the coaches. I've had my own son, who's 15U, kind of going through his program, done a little bit of it myself as well. And that's a lot of the stuff that he has, is that I'm the best mentality is not necessarily out of a boasting or confidence, but it's almost like creating this on-field persona for yourself. Mm-hmm. And the way he kind of looks at it is you can kind of tie it to an animal, so you can be like, okay, every time I step on the field, I become that tiger, or I become that lion, or I become that version of myself, kind of that black mamba approach from Kobe Bryant. And then when you take the uniform off, it's as though you've taken off that persona, and now you become you again, but you have an alter ego almost on the baseball side of things. And I think that's all kind of ties into that, is like creating this different approach to how you, view failure, but then how you self-talk yourself in these ABs, where success isn't always determined by ultimately a hit or a strikeout.
Yeah, and how you measured success offensively is a big thing, right? Here with our organization, we just implemented this actually this year. We're going with QAB stickers, right? So quality at bats, obviously QAB, QAB, however anybody wants to say it, it measures success for an offensive player, right? This generation of player isn't as mentally tough as you and I were to say, hey, man, I got out, I'm going to go get him the next time.
That's
Sometimes they kind of sulk a little bit, and they don't necessarily know how to deal with failure, because I'm sure both of us are guilty of it. We kind of steal the struggle away from our kids sometimes. I know I'm guilty of it. But understanding what quality ABs, right, obviously a situational hit, getting a guy over, getting a guy in, right, sack bunt, right, hard hit balls for an out. Like there's over 7 multiple, if you have six to 7 plus pitches in an at bat, even though it leads to a strikeout, that's a quality at bat, right? So what we do anytime we have a quality at bat, coaches marks it down, right, and then at the end of the game, our coach hands out a QAB sticker for obviously with the Tigers that has paws on it, right, and it says QAB inside of it, and the person that wins, right, gets that sticker. Number one, it increases competition and internal competition between the team to be able to be productive, right? I don't even have hit on there anywhere for a quality at bat. Obviously, if you square a ball up and get a hit, you're going to get one, but we don't even talk about hits. Even when I was at Memphis, we don't talk about hits, because offense is about production, right? And there's multiple ways to do that. Walk, getting hit, like all of those things. So now these kids stepped in the box saying there's 7 to 9 different ways that I can be successful, right? And I was talking to a coach today. I was watching from one of the backfields across the way on another team. We had a guy that hit a hard ground ball to the shortstop with the middle back with a guy at third base, scored the run. What did our team do? Our team went to the guy that hit the ball. They didn't go to the guy that scored. So everybody's like, "Oh my God, that's a QAB! Let's go!" And they get excited, right? And that's huge, because our guys can step into the box knowing that it's not just about getting hits, right? And I think that's what travel ball is kind of turned into, just to showcase hit. Did I throw 95 and strike everybody out? And they're losing the team aspect. And then as soon as they get to college, they have to start buying back into the team aspect. And there's a bump and grind with the coaches and the players in the initial to be able to have guys that buy in. So I think that's for everybody. And I know it's not a new thing, but it's something that we've incorporated with our organization that could be big for offenses in general. I
love it. I hope by the end of the summer they look like the Ohio State Buckeyes, and we just got these QAB stickers all over them.
Absolutely. I hope so too.
Got Grayson Mirabella at the plate right now. Had a rundown there with Jack Gleason, and I know it's something that has to drive coaches crazy when you've got a guy in a rundown and you seemingly have everybody in position and the runner somehow still makes it back to the base.
Oh, man, sometimes it's about clearing those throwing lanes, right? Like if you don't have a clear throwing lane, then the guy has to try to do something different with the ball, and then it can go wild a million different ways. But, something that can be taught for sure.
Yeah, it's such a difficult thing, because you can set it up in practice, but the game element of getting a guy in a pickle and being able to pull it off is very different than saying, okay, we're going to rundown drills at practice.
It's all about obviously cutting down the space. We used to, when I was in pro ball, we used to say, hey, we're going to try to limit this thing to 2 throws. If we do it right, 3 is acceptable. And that all comes from just being able to cut the distance down between the runner and making him commit. If the runner is kind of back and forth, standing sideways, he hadn't committed, so that's going to be able to give him options to be able to go one way or the other. But if we can get a guy running hard in a certain direction, that will lead to a tag and an out if the ball's delivered the right way.
3-1 count here to Grayson Marabelli. We've got 2 out in the inning. USA Scout a 2-1 lead. Sends that one back foul. I think I got a piece of the umpire.
Yeah, we had an umpire actually, guy with a big backswing actually hit his hand earlier today. So those guys are tough back there, I know. But, I mean, they couldn't have picked a better day to be able to be behind the dish with the gear on right now. Yeah,
gorgeous weather out here in Metro Atlanta. We're definitely we've had a few signs of this spring here, but we had some pretty cold nights this past week. So hopefully this is our signal, and we're going to give the umpire a little bit more time here, kind of regroup after getting a piece of that foul ball. But I think spring has finally actually arrived here in Metro Atlanta. Look at the size difference between the first baseman and the pitcher. That's a massive guy playing first base. That is a big guy, man. I'm telling you, they're all over the place like that. But, I mean, just like you said, everybody's journey's different, right? He's physical right now. The guy that he was talking to, one of the middle infielders, don't quit, man. Just keep grinding it out. Just keep going. Logan Ladier playing first base right now for USA Scout, 6'2", 259 pounds. He's from St. Pius X in Kansas City, Missouri. That's a big guy, man. That's a tight end. That's a tight end. Yeah. And Mercer, I mean, he's a kid. He's a baby. He's a 2029. Man. 6'2", 259. We've got exit velos at 94.9, a bat speed of nearly 70 miles an hour out of him, and he's in 8th grade. Guy's moving the pole, too, so that means he's a big guy and he's got a little bit of twitch. Sometimes those big guys are kind of just long, strong, and powerful, but if he's moving the pole like that, there's something in there. I know we get a lot of we obviously have our wood bat stage of the summer schedule, but I'm always fascinated when you see these numbers, and because of the StatCast area now, you can obviously pull up every major leaguer, and you can see Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, that they're getting that those average exit velos into the mid 90s. Obviously a big difference between a wood bat and a metal bat, but even when you see those numbers kind of correlate and you're like, yeah, I know it's only coming in spurts, but you're seeing these guys produce the same kind of numbers. Again, different between wood bat and metal bat, but that's what these pitchers and these fielders are having to deal with at this young age, is the same kind of velocity off the bat that they're dealing with at the major league level. That's right. I think where you play in the field is a very important thing on being able to handle that, but also obviously with the professional guys, what they're trying to hit and square up is a little bit more difficult than my man who's 6'2", 255 or whatever it was. Right. And, we've got a guy humming a nice 70-mile-an-hour fastball with no run or horizontal break or anything. That's right. It's just on a tee for him to have him, get after it. So, but yeah, these guys are big. They're physical. Obviously, there's multiple hundreds that are hit when we're here for the futures games, and it's just crazy what these young bodies can do, man. Some people buy into it, right? And, obviously there's certain things on the youth level that you can do to be able to create that too, right? It's like back in the day we were like, this guy's just bigger than everyone else. But guess what? There's, all kind of plyometrics and strength programs, push-ups, this, that, and the other, speed and agility guys that can help get players to that point. Maybe not as tall, but you can get as physical and as strong, right? That's something that you can work on. So being able to have more of a holistic approach, which our organization is starting to get into a little bit more on, how can we spend time developing these guys in the winter to be able to get stronger so they can move the bat a little bit, move their arm a little bit faster, right? So all of those things come into play. It's not just happen chance anymore, right? You have to be able to invest in some of those things for your player if your player loves it enough. Well, Julian Henson, I apologize that we got started a little bit late. Game before this ran a little bit long, but fantastic stuff as always. I know we'll see plenty of you all summer long leading up to potentially seeing you back here once again for the future games. Thank you so much, man. Enjoy the weekend. Thanks for having me. Absolutely.